Yo, what the frick is poppin', fella and fellaettes of the YouTube world? It's the man with the plan, the man you got to stand, Jordan Crouton Moore, coming at you guys with something a little bit different this time. Because, we got some crazy tier changes, some ones that, man, I was not expecting for sure. And I want to talk about some of these with you guys. I think it makes a lot of sense to jump into these with you. And I think it would be really cool to talk about some really crazy switches that we see coming in right now. So I'd love to talk to you guys about it, and let's get into it. Instead of a regular showdown show out, we're going to get this tier change video up. We're going to get this talked about because it is now June 2nd, and that is too long for me to wait to talk about some of these crazy moves. So real quick, I want to talk about some breaking news that happened just yesterday. Drakefish is banned, which means Seismitoad's usage is about to plummet, probably, in my opinion. I think it is. I think Clefable's probably going to be one of the next Pokemon to be tested because that thing is... I think it's hard to handle, man. It's just everywhere. I think it was like at over 50% usage over the last couple days, which is just that's just insane to me. Absolutely insane. But that thing's gonna keep rising up until we put a stop to it. But Dracovish is gone, man. That whole Maractus team, no good anymore. I wouldn't run Maractus no more. We don't need Water Absorb for anything. But yeah, man, Dracovish is gone. That's crazy for me to think of. Dracovish has always been in the meta, and I really like that mod. I think it had some really cool stuff to it, and I honestly think that Dracovish will be back whenever DLC drops, because you're going to have a lot of really good mods that come back. So I definitely think Dracovish is going to be back eventually. But let's talk about these tier changes, man, because there are some really crazy ones that I never thought I would be able to see in my entire life. So let's go ahead and let's talk about the rises first. UUBL to OU, I kind of saw these two coming. I mean, it really doesn't matter. They were only playable in OU anyways. Most of these BL changes are just because of usage. But I do want to talk about Primarina real quick, because I actually think Primarina is a really good mon. I think Ninetales you're going to see mainly running the same two sets. You're either going to see it running Specs, or you're going to see it running a Nasty Plot Aurora Veil set, which I think is probably the best whenever it comes to Alolan Ninetales. But I do want to talk about Primarina because this thing has so much flexibility in how you run it. I think this thing could be a great Life Orb attacker. It's a good support mod. It's a good defensive wall. It's got good typing with Water and Fairy type. And really, you can run its Specs, and this thing does a ton of damage. I really like Primarina. I think it's good for the meta, especially since Dracovish is gone. I think that's probably one of the reasons why it rose so high. But I think it's really interesting because in doubles, everyone talks about how Incineroar is like this huge threat. But in singles, he's in UU. I mean, and he's not really having any chance to drop down. So or come up, but I really like what Primarina was able to do here in OU, and looking at some statistics real quick, because that's the kind of person I am. I love looking at stats and all that jazz. I do want to talk just 1 second about some of the usage. Because there's a lot of interesting things that you can kind of look at here. One of which comes in OU, and I want to talk about this just for 1 second. So from all the mons that were being used, the top ones were Dracovish was at number 10. That one gone. Bisharp was at number 9, which really surprises me, but I guess the lack of a really good steel type is kind of prohibiting so some of this movement here. Number 8 is Seismitoad. He's about to drop off hardcore because of Dracovish being gone. I think you're going to see Toxapex move into that top 10 as it's sitting at number 11, but only barely missing the cut is Alolan Ninetales. I find it really weird. We'll talk about this mon in a second. That's sitting at number 32. But there's some really good mons that are kind of sitting in the back half. I think maybe next month we could see something like Hatterene drop from OU to UU, which I think would be really interesting. But these guys definitely are a big part of the meta here, and I think it makes a lot of sense for these guys to for these guys to make a big difference here. Next up, we have Shuckle moving from PU to OU, which I think is really interesting. So Shuckle isn't even in the top in PU where he was being used. He's not in the top 10. He's not really even in the usage in PU, but he is number 32 in OU. So he moves up from PU all the way to OU. I want to know who was using Shuckle that much that he gets moved up. I think it's really interesting, but at the same time, I feel like why? Shuckle's a good hazard setter, but other than that, that's pretty much it. A lot of people talking about different kind of stuff whenever it comes to how we're going to be able to handle the hazard stacking, but like you look at some of these mons that are in here. I mean, specifically, I want to look at just the Excadrill, the Corviknight, all these different mons that have access to defog that are very, very high up. Mew, Mandibuzz, Court Change on Cinderace. I mean, like, there are so many mons that are going to be able to abuse Shuckle's hazard stacking. So I think it's really interesting that Shuckle did get put in OU. I'm going to be interested to see how this works. I think by the end of the month he'll probably be down to NU or PU once again, because I just don't think the usage is going to stay up, especially with Dracovish leaving. I think Dracovish leaving is going to really change some of these usage stats. I think you're going to start seeing a lot of mons that are starting to come back up. I think Tyranitar is going to start coming back up. I think Scarf Terrakion is going to keep coming back up, or start coming back up, and I think you're going to see a lot of these mons really start to jump up. Next up, I want to talk about Natu. Natu is actually a really interesting one. Natu jumping from RU to UU. I really, really like Natu. I've never really used, or that's not Natu, that's Xatu. Natu's the little baby one. But I actually really like Xatu. I haven't used one too many times in my life, but I think he's really cool. Having Magic Bounce is the main reason why you'd use a Xatu. He's really just a defensive mon. He comes in, bounces away the rocks, and then it's just kind of like, see ya. But yeah, Xatu moving up to UU is going to be interesting. I honestly don't really think that that's going to make too much of a difference. I think he could be good at dealing with maybe Cobalion. Excuse me. Cobalion and Wheezing, but other than that, I really don't see Xatu doing too much work, in my opinion. Next up, we have a rise from NUBL to RU, and it is going to be Turtonator. I have some experience with Turtonator. Turtonator is definitely not my favorite mon. If you guys watched the Showdown Show Out with him, then you would definitely know that I am not the biggest fan of Turtonator. I think he's got some cool sets that you can run, though. I unfortunately chose to run Specs, which is not his strong suit, but you know, really Turtonator's just super cool. I think he's a good mon. I think he had a lot of missed potential, and I think going to RU is gonna be healthy for him. But I do think he will end up dropping back down to NUBL eventually, because he's too good for NU, but he's not good enough to be RU, in my opinion. Next up, we have a rise from NU to RU, which I think is really, really cool. It is Drampa. This thing is really, really awesome. You can run a number of different sets with Drampa, but my favorite is just Specs, because this thing hits so hard. Draco Meteor, Hyper Voice, Fire Blast, and like a third move, whatever you want to run on this thing. I mean, Hyper Voice stab on this man is just insane. And in my opinion, I think he's something that you're definitely going to need to watch out for in RU. Simply because he might be a little bit slow, but with his defensive stat, I mean, there's no telling when you're going to be able to KO. And I believe he was actually in the top 10 usage in NU, which I think is kind of interesting. But he also made the cut for RU, so this thing has been used a lot, and I really like what he's been able to do. Next up, we got some PU changes I think could be really interesting. Moving from ZU to PU, we have Duskanoir, which I think is an okay ghost type. A lot of these mons that are moving up are, of course, going to be okay at best. Duskanoir is really, really cool. He's got a nice ability to get off Will-O-Wisps. He's got all kinds of that stuff. Gourgeist is coming up next to PU as well. I actually really do like Gourgeist. I think it could be a really good mon in a metagame like RU or in PU, like it's going to right now, which I think is really, really cool. Next up, Pyukumuku. This thing is a defensive wall. I hate fighting Pyukumuku because it takes 10 years for it to kill unless you have an electric type or a grass type on your team. And even then, sometimes it'll take 3 shots to take down a Pyukumuku. And it has Recover, it has Toxic, it stalls you. This Mon really just is not my favorite thing in the entire world. Then Silvally Bug. I really like Silvally. I honestly think that all the Silvally should be at least in PU. Take him out of the ZU, take him out of all that stuff, because I really feel like they are just that good. Multi-attack does a lot of damage. I think Electric is a really cool one. I've actually used Silvally Electric in a tournament that I played in. So I do think that Silvally Electric is a cool mon, and I think in PU it's gonna see a lot of usage, considering that some of the bigger mons in PU right now really don't have that big of an electric weakness. The only one that you can really use right now for PU is going to be that Basculin. But there are some really good flying types in PU that you can kind of use to check here with Silvally Electric. Then we have NFE to PU. We're going to have Dusclops, which I think is a cool mon, but he's mostly only good in doubles. I wouldn't run him ever in singles unless you want a bulky Will-O-Wisper. I wouldn't run Dusk Noir. I mean, he could be a spin blocker maybe, but like at the end of the day, I really don't think that Dusk Noir is going to be a mon that many people are going to be using in PU, and I think it is going to drop back down to NFE. And last but not least, we have a rise from LC to PU with Marini, which I think is kind of interesting. This mon is very, very bulky, very, very good in LC. I don't even play a lot of LC, and I know this mon was good there. And I think that's going to be an interesting change. I think people are going to be using him in PU because, I mean, of course you are, or else he wouldn't have risen. And I think it's only going to keep getting higher and higher. I think PU starting to see some really cool stuff with some of these baby mons, really starting to see some usage, and I really, really like that. Next up, we got some drops. Oh my god, this is going to be insane. Keldeo and Pelipper have dropped from OU to UU. So UU had that whole thing about Sun and Venusaur whenever Venusaur dropped down to UU. And just for that little bit, and everyone was like, oh my god, Sun, oh no, oh no, oh no. Well now you've got Rain with Keldeo and Barraskewda with the best Rain setter in the game. I really think that Rain is going to be insta-banned. And I think Pelipper is going to send back up to UU. I do think Keldeo has a chance to stay in UU, though. I think Keldeo could add a couple really good stuff here. Considering that the third most used mon is Incineroar, I think that Keldeo could do wonders and kind of balancing out that tier. But at the same time, I think Keldeo has a lot of answers in UU. And in my opinion, UU's biggest threat, they don't really have an answer for still, being Haxorus. I mean, Sylveon is an okay answer, but at the end of the day, Haxorus is just an absolute monster, getting access to Poison Jab, getting access to all this different kind of stuff, and you pretty much have to run a double Fairy Core or a single Fairy in UU. You can't get away with not running a Fairy in UU, and that's just how it is. And you know, I really like how UU's built right now, but I think these two are going to change the meta. I think Rain could be a very, very quick ban coming in here, but I do really like Keldeo and UU. I think this mon is going to show people what he's made of, and I think he will immediately be in top 10 usage if he's allowed to stay. Next up, UU to RU, my bad, dropping down. We're going to see Torkoal Sun dropping down. Dugtrio is only going to continue to drop down. I think Dugtrio is a good RU-PU mon at the end of the day, and I think he's probably going to settle down here soon. Since Arena Trap is gone, I mean, he's pretty much used for a fast Sash Stealth Rocker, Suicide Lead. But a very interesting one to me is Corsola going down to RU. This thing is very, very bulky. It was once seen to be as one of the best defensive mons in the game, with Eviolite, Strength Sap, Toxic, running all this different kind of stuff on here, and running Nightshade for the consistent damage. But it's kind of dropped off a little bit. People haven't been using it as much, and in my opinion, I see no problem with that. But for a lot of people, it's going to be interesting to see how this impacts RU. I think RU has some really good threats against this thing, but I also feel like it's very weak whenever it comes to the weakness there, and seeing how everything's going to go. But I think it's got some good dark types. I think one of them has to be that mon I can't remember, Drapion. I think Drapion is going to be a pretty good counter to this thing, so we'll see what happens here in RU. Next up, from a drop from RU to NUBL, it's Kingler. He's just dropping back down. No big problems there. But then we come to some crazy stuff here. This is crazy to me. RU to NU, so dropping down a tier, we have Avalug, a huge defensive mon. That's tough to break in RU. I can only imagine how tough it's going to be to break in NU. Boltund, I don't like Boltund. I don't think it's that great. Girder, I think that this is a big mistake. I think this mon is very, very good, and I think it's going to be excellent in NU. Then we have Morpeko. That is so surprising for me because I love Morpeko. I think Morpeko has a lot of really good stuff, and you look at it right now, and man, I don't really know how to think of this. I don't really know how to. I mean, Morpeko was one of my favorites in RU, and it hits like an absolute truck. I want to see what Life Orb Morpeko is going to be able to do against some of the threats in NU. I mean, Kofagris is the number one mon right now in NU, and I want to see how much a Choice Band or a Wheel does to that thing. Rotom going down, not a big surprise, and then 2 Silvali's going down to NU, also not a very big surprise. And then we see some NU to PU changes. I think these are definitely going to switch up the meta in PU. Specifically, in my opinion, the one that's going to switch up the meta the most is going to be Golurk. Simply because you look at some of PU's usage here, all 3 of them are weak to Golurk. Well, all 4 of the top are weak to Golurk. You have Mr. Rhyme, who can, of course, hit with a Freeze Dry pretty hard. Manectric, Mawile, and Pawniard are all weak to an Earthquake. from Golurk, and this thing, you slap a band on this thing and it's going to hit like a truck. Melton comes down, no big surprise there, he's going to continue to fall. Mr. Rhyme actually falls down to PU as well. That's a very interesting one. You have Ponyta, or not Ponyta, oh my goodness, Rapidash, Galarian Rapidash falling from NU to PU, which I think gives it a little bit more viability. I want to use that thing later on this week, so if you see a Galarian Ponyta video dropping in a few days, don't be caught off guard because it's going to be coming. And then we got Stunfisk here. You already know Stunfisk God, we used him already. And that was a really fun showdown show out. If you haven't watched it, it's the first ever episode on this YouTube channel, so go check it out. And then finally, going from PU to ZU, we're going to be having the what are you called? I don't even Persian. There we go, Persian. The Pincurchin and the Galarian Slowpoke going from PU to ZU, which is not a surprise at all. I mean, these mons really just aren't my favorites. So let's go. I want to go ahead and talk about some of the usage stats too. I'm going to go ahead and switch over here from this to the next. Let me see here. I want to go ahead and show you guys the right here. Some of these usage stats right here. Just to kind of look here, I want to point out that Darmanitan is number 9 on here, and Tyranitar and Corviknight are up in Ubers, which I think is really cool. But UU, of course, Haxorus up at the top of everybody. Here's the OUs if you guys want to take a look at those. Some really interesting stuff here. Of course, Dragovich is going to go down. Seismitoad's going to go down. Clefable's probably only going to go up. Zeraora, of course, one of the best mons in the tier. But let's look back down at these usage stats here. Looking at LC, Volibee, Timber, Onix, Pawniard, Ferroseed, Diglett. I mean, like, all of these are very, very standard. I would like to see Ponyta and Ponyta both in here at 8 and 9. I think that's really, really cool. PU, of course, looking pretty similar. Not going to lie. I mean, the PU's probably one of the more balanced tiers, in my opinion, because I feel like you've got the same mons that are almost always on every single team. Although you look at Mr. Rhyme, he's on 32% of teams, which I think is kind of insane. Let's look here at RU, because RU is my favorite. NU is very basic, but I want to look at RU here and look at these stats and usage, man, because this stuff is changing constantly. Charizard being number 1 makes a lot of sense. It's battling with Vaporeon, which also makes a lot of sense. Steelix is one of the best rockers in the game. Body press, defense curl, all that jazz. He'd be looking fine in RU. And last but not least, let's take a look at UU here. Of course, you're going to see a lot of these mons kind of staying the same. Not many kind of on the rise, but Toxtricity, I think, is developing into one of the biggest threats in UU. I think this thing is going to be amazing whenever it catches its feet down here. It's been here for about a month. but I think it's going to continue to catch its feet. Haxorus, of course, being the best mon in all of UU. I try not to use a Haxorus on my team in UU, and that comes back and bites me on the butt, man, because that is just that's just not how you should play the game, because it's gonna be rough. It's gonna be rough. And something I actually want to talk about here that I came to notice while we were doing this, there are three grass types in all of the top 10. You have the first one being Vileplume, then Rotom-Mow, then you have Eldegoss, and that's it for grass types. Well, I guess Ferroseed 2 and LC, but LC doesn't count because it's LC, for goodness sakes. That tier sucks. So in my opinion, I think this is really, really cool to kind of look at. But at the end of the day, things are going to get changed. I think that's going to be really awesome to see. And at the end of the day, I'm excited to see how these tiers play. I'm very excited to see how this tier goes with no Draco, because Dracovish is going to be huge. I'll bring you guys back up to this real quick. But yeah, that's going to do it for this episode. I hope you guys did enjoy this tier recap video. There's a lot of really cool mons, and like I said, be expecting that Galarian Rapidash video sometime soon. I don't know what tier I'm going to play in, probably in RU, because that's my favorite. But if you guys want to see any Pokemon, just let me know. And this is your boy, Jordan Crouton Moore, signing off. Peace.